Durant pull-up jumper off the rim and in. Oh! And the Thunder win! All right, come on, let's sing the Thunder song. When you hear the sound of thunder, don't you get too scared. Just grab your Thunder buddy and say these magic words.
Hello and welcome back to a special edition of the Thunder Buddies podcast. It's been a while since our last one. Summer NBA season's really kind of hit a stall. About 2 months till training camp, but we got something special for you coming this month in August. 5-part Billy Donovan series, really kind of diving into the history, background, sprouting of new Thunder coach Billy Donovan into the job he currently stands at. On this podcast, we'll have a sit-down interview with him and some sound bites. But Darnell Mayberry is in studio with me. He's reporting on this process, as am I. Darnell, are you excited about this? Or
I'm very excited about it. Can't you tell?
Yeah, I've been telling all day.
5-part Billy Donovan series. This is it's I think it's a little much, but Billy Donovan is a coach who has had a lot of success. He's been all over the place. He's only been at Florida and Marshall as a coach, and Kentucky as an assistant, but he's seen it all. He's done it all. And when you've got someone with that much experience and that much achievement as a coach in his profession,
iconic coach.
He's iconic. I mean, he really is, and I think there is a lot on the bone there, and there's a lot that we can get into, and I think readers will enjoy this series as it goes on.
Yeah, I mean, I understand your hesitancy. It's summertime to have a 5-part series, but I mean, especially as I'm doing research, as I'm doing reporting on this series, like there's plenty there. Yeah. Like I have plenty to write about, and I'm doing 3 of the parts. I have plenty to write about. And we're gonna start. It'll be this Sunday, or we're talking about this before Sunday. I have no idea when we're actually gonna release this podcast. It may be on Monday. So, every Sunday in August is when these things are gonna come out, and we're gonna go chronologically. Childhood. I'm writing the first one, but we sat down with him for what would you say, hour or so?
Yeah, a little over an hour.
Great. He's a great guy. Great with his time. We're gonna play a lot of clips over this podcast, maybe into another podcast of his interview. But just starting first on this childhood, what stood out to you? He's from New York. Kind of built himself into a player, even though he didn't have the tools.
That stood out to me most. He's almost like Scott Brooks in that way, but Scott Brooks obviously had a better pro career than Billy Donovan did. But he willed himself to become a player, and he wasn't blessed with the most athletic ability. He wasn't the tallest or the most gifted. 5'10", white guy with not a lot of athleticism, and he's going up and playing against some of the best players in the country at that time, not only in high school but as he moves on into college. So it's just the fact that his heart, his determination, his desire, all of that, his commitment, it just helped him become a player, and he really carved out a nice career for himself as a player first, and then using that to become a coach.
A couple things before we play kind of the first part of his interview to know is, he grew up in New York City at a golden age of point guards. Mark Jackson, Kenny Smith, obviously both those names. They're now NBA household names. Pearl Washington, his former Syracuse point guard, playground legend. I think he was #1 recruit in the country at that time. Billy Donovan is in that graduating class in the same area, played them all in high school, which I think is very interesting. And then the other thing which you'll hear him talk about a lot is he had two on his high school team at St. Agnes. He had 2 black guys from Hampstead, which is a rougher area in Long Island, that would take him to tougher areas, playgrounds around New York City, Queens, and allow him to play, bring him into these places. And he really talks about having to earn respect in those areas, in those games. He talks a lot about it. He credits that for shaping him not only as a player, but kind of as a person in a lot of ways. He said he saw what life was really like. I thought that part was super interesting.
Let's hear the clip.
Well, first, before we hear the clip, I want to hear about, give me your one random fact that you learned that you thought was interesting? I got one for sure.
What's yours?
He was recruited by PJ Carlesimo hard.
That was I didn't know that.
No, I didn't. I mean that's just it's very interesting because obviously everyone knows PJ Carlesimo, the first Thunder coach in history, he was a coach at Seton Hall and recruits the next, the newest coach in Thunder history. I just thought that was really interesting. You'll hear him talk about that a little. Do you got one?
It's not random, but the assistant coaches that he played, or the coaching staffs that he played for.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a who's who of names that Billy Donovan gets into that really just helped shape him as a player, and he was able to pick their brains as coaches. I mean, Rick Pitino, Jeff Van Gundy. I forget the names.
John
off the top of
Chaney, I think, was one.
No, he recruited him,
Okay.
but he didn't play for him.
Right.
But Rick Pitino had some other guys on that staff at Providence.
Tubby Smith.
Well, that was at Kentucky.
Well,
but
but
when he was
right.
a player,
Okay,
he
we're
had
just talking
some
player,
some coaches that were just incredible. And I'll find it after this clip. But it was amazing the coaches that he actually played for.
Yeah, for sure. Here's Billy.
The Wheelchair Classic, lefty in and out dribble on Pearl Washington. Do you remember that play? And that, I guess, that game.
I don't know if I remember the play. A little bit vaguely.
Yeah.
You know, it was all the boroughs in New York. I think I was playing
Yeah.
with Queens at the time, so there was some good players. I think Kenny Smith played, Mark Jackson. Mark, I think, played for Mark played for Queens, and then Kenny Smith, and then Pearl Washington played for Brooklyn, and but there was basically the five boroughs played against each other. So that was an interesting time because I think coming back to the Wheelchair Classic, I had just committed to go to Providence.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go to Seton Hall with PJ Carlesimo. And every time he went to come watch me play, I played awful. And every time his assistant came, I played halfway decent. So in the wheelchair, after the game was over with, playing against all those guys, PJ came up to me and said to me, "Hey, listen, do you still have interest in coming?" And I said, "Well, I just made a decision to go to Providence, And he said, "Well, did you sign anything?"
Yeah.
So I do remember that because actually it was the time that I made a decision to go to Providence.
I mean, you played really well that game. Or was it just one game or a tournament?
It was several games there. I
Yeah.
played good. We played against Pearl's team, and Pearl and I played against each other a lot growing up.
Yeah.
We played against each other in high school, and then in a lot of different all-star games and stuff like that. But at that time, coming out of New York, my senior year, one guy that no one probably even remembers is Kenny Hutchinson, who went to Arkansas and never really panned out. But probably coming out, he may have been better than all of them. So my senior year was Pearl Washington, Kenny Smith, and Mark Jackson. And then Kenny Hutchinson was coming out that year too. So like in New York that at that time, and then right below us you had Boo Harvey, who played at St. John's, and you had Ed Davender that played at Kentucky. So and then you had Rod Strickland was a year behind me. So at that time in New York growing up, there was like some really, really, really good point guards. So I got a chance to play against a lot of those guys a lot. Like Kenny, played against him a lot, played against Mark a lot. My junior year, we beat Mark's team to go to the state tournament. My senior year, his team beat us to go to the state tournament. So I was always playing all throughout New York against those guys.
Bernard Woodside and Frank Williams, they were your teammates. Just kind of talking to your parents.
Well, you really went back into the archives here, huh?
Yeah, right. You would go to local, kind of like Hampstead, different, street ball courts. What do you remember about those games?
I think it had the biggest impact in development on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I always was appreciative because I was predominantly going into these black neighborhoods, and what I would do is either they have to come get me to bring me in there,
mm-hmm.
or I'd have to, take the train or subway or bus, and I get dropped off and they'd meet me at the bus stop, and then we would go into these parks and recreation centers to play, and I was the only white guy in there.
Yeah.
And, it was great because there was absolutely no respect for me. I had to earn respect. I really think I became the player I became because those guys, especially my teammates, and even in those environments, gave me an opportunity to play in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
It was really something that I had totally different appreciation for life. I saw things in a totally different view. I'll never forget one of the guys I was playing with, like he takes me up because we had a little bit of time before we were getting ready to play. And I'm walking up the staircase, and there's just graffiti all over the walls, and he's, we're sitting in his apartment, and his mom was working like 2 jobs, so she wasn't even home, and we were just sitting there. It was probably like 4:30, 5 o'clock. I think we were playing like at 6 or something, and he opened up the refrigerator, and the only thing that was in there was like a jug of water. That was it. Mm-hmm. And the guy hadn't eaten all day, and it just gave me a different appreciation for, in some of those environments those guys were growing up in, just that basketball and their education was really all they had. To try to find a way out, so to speak, in a lot of ways. And those guys always treated me great. They brought me in there. They let me play. I wasn't always the first guy picked. I was probably the last guy picked. But it really was, to me, I think, shaped me in so many different ways.
Toughened you up.
Not even a toughening up part, but the having to go on the court and earn respect, and having to basically, there's no handouts.
Yeah.
And there's no entitlement, and there's nothing. You have to prove yourself. You're walking in there with basically no respect, and you have to earn all that kind of stuff. So nothing was given out. It wasn't like this hand-me-out where you just kind of like walk into a park and there's 3 guys playing 3-on-3. Well, let's play for an hour or 2, and after we get done, we're just going to go home. Like, it wasn't that way. I mean, there was a lot of guys in there playing. And I'd go there, I'd go up to IS-8 in New York, and it would be slammed with people in there playing. And,
crowds too, kind of?
A little bit, a little bit. When I go down to, I played on a summer league team with Bernard, and his older brother had me on the team. We ended up playing in Roosevelt at Centennial Park, and it was a tough area, and it was like I really think that time, probably from my sophomore year of high school throughout my senior year, even through college, shaped me in so many different ways. I think socially, going into a lot of different environments and seeing so many different things, that I was exposed to so many different things of what actual real life living was like and what guys were dealing with on a regular basis. And I grew up in a really, really great home, both parents there, good family. I was never in a position where I ever needed or wanted anything. I had clothes on my back, I had food on the table, I had shoes, you know what I mean? And a lot of these other guys that I was around, they grew up really hard, in a lot of different ways. And if I didn't play, I wouldn't have gotten exposed to that side of things. And it also helped me grow, too, in a lot of different ways, because I think I learned a lot being in that kind of environment.
Coach, how much God-given ability did you have?
I think the one thing that always came easy for me is I really felt like I had a great feel for the game. I knew how to play. I could really pass. I could see. But I wasn't, athletically, a lot of God-given ability athletically. I wasn't playing above the rim. I wasn't the fastest guy. I think I got, as time went on, we're talking about, I got better with the ball. I think going into those schoolyards and parks and playing against guys that were quicker, faster, stronger, playing against older guys, I had to learn how to handle the ball. I had to learn how to break people down. I had to learn how to get shots off. And a lot of times I learned that a lot of times it had nothing to do with maybe your athletic talent, but it had a lot to do with how good you were with the ball and how you could break people down and get into the lane and do different things and then be able to pass. So I would say that I didn't have this overly talented God-given ability, but I felt like I got everything out of myself athletically that I could. Like I think a lot of times players, when they finish up playing, they always look back, not in all cases, but a lot of times they look back and they have great regret that they didn't invest more in the game and didn't spend more time. Like, I have absolutely zero regret with my career. As much as I would have loved to have played in the NBA for 15 years and would have loved to have had a career playing. But I was able to walk away and have a level of peace because I really felt like, okay, I became as good as I could become. So I don't know how much I would say, like, God-given. I can blame my parents on that.
I've read that you didn't have great athleticism, but then at what point were you able to hold your own against some of the guys that we've been mentioning and really be able to compete with those guys?
Well, when I was, the first thing is when I went to high school, I played for St. Agnes. My rest is soul. My high school coach was a great coach, and he just believed in playing against the best. So I got exposed, which I think really helped me. in the high school program I was in. So my junior year, we went to Camden, New Jersey. We played against Billy Thompson and Kevin Walsh and those guys. They were like #1 in the country. We played against boys and girls with Pearl. We would always play against Malloy with Mark Jackson. We would go into Cardinal Hayes in the Bronx, and we would play against them. We'd play against Ben Franklin with Kenny Hutchinson and Walter Berry. So at that time, the height of New York basketball was probably at an all-time high. And a lot of it had to do with is in 1980s when the Big East started. And that's the time where all these guys in New York and Jersey and Connecticut, they were all staying home in the Big East to play. And the Big East at that point in time with Chris Mullin and Patrick Ewing, I mean, it was like the biggest thing, at least growing up in New York it was, and being around, growing up 20 minutes away from St. John's, it was the biggest thing. So my dream was to always play, you know, in there. So I think what ends up happening is like when you get thrusted into situations where you're playing against guys that are so much more talented or gifted than you, you learn how to take what you have and function and play, and you learn. And those going into those schoolyards and playgrounds and playing against a lot of those guys helped me find out more about myself, to your point, that I learned what I had to do to get better, and I was able to do it. So I wouldn't say I was the fastest guy, but I was very good with the ball. I could see, I had good vision. I could get in the lane, and probably more so of being a shooter, I probably was a better scorer than I was a shooter. You know, I was probably more of a consistent scorer. So, and I learned how to score. You know, I learned how to get fouled. I learned how to get into the lane. I learned how to, you know, use floaters and those, but I wasn't dunking. I wasn't pinning guys' shots on the glass, and I wasn't like a jet from one end to the floor to the other. It wasn't me, but I was good with the ball. And, you know, I to be honest with you, I watched Pearl Washington a lot. You know, I watched him a lot because he was a guy to me that he didn't play way above the rim at all, but he was so good with the ball, and he was a big, strong body, and I was always amazed about how he could break people down. And I really watched him a lot, and I learned a lot from playing against him and seeing him. But my senior year, we played against him. My senior year, we played 6 quarters in a scrimmage. My high school against his high school. We actually played it in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, and he scored 82 points. And we pressed the whole game, but it was just like this guy's weaving in and out of the press. And I learned a lot by watching, and I felt like I learned a lot as a player by watching and then being thrusted into those situations. You know, I also, you go into these projects and you go into these neighborhoods and these areas now. It's an uncomfortable situation when guys want to win, and all of a sudden you turn it over, take a bad shot. You know what I mean? And you're like, okay, am I going to get out of here alive right now? You know what I mean? Like, these guys got to let me go, and everybody's got to sit on the thing, and they're getting on your case and that stuff. But those guys always like. And then once I kept going back in there, that I earned a lot more respect, and I was a lot more, I was much more accepted. That there was almost like, man, this guy's a little bit nuts. This guy keeps coming back to play, but it was great. You know what I mean? It was like those times. You look back on at the time, you don't realize what you're going through. But I'd say probably from my sophomore year in high school till going to my senior year of college, like those experiences in New York really helped me a lot.
Do you have like a memory of a game or a play where you did something where you're like, I earned their respect, with that game? Or
there was a couple plays in the Wheelchair Classic. There was a couple plays, I think, we played Long Island, played against New York City in an All-Star game. With some of those things. I don't know if there was a particular play where, there was, one thing that really stood out. It's really interesting. Like, when you're playing in these games and stuff like that, first of all, the intensity level is at an unbelievable level because there's so many guys that are wanting to play. And winners stay on. So I really got thrusted into an environment where it was highly competitive, it was highly edgy, and, I don't know, it wasn't like a and one hoops mixtape video kind of environment. Guys were playing to win. Guys on Saturday are coming to work out, and they don't want to go home at 2 o'clock for being there and getting 15 minutes of run. So, like, that was the one thing that I always, like, there was never ever came down to, like, this one play, but there was always, like, the intensity of the games got to a very, very high level. Very high level. And I always remember that, the intent. Like, there was certainly some games where all of a sudden the game starts and one team drills another team, and it's like, bang, 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 they're sitting down. But then there's also some games where you're playing to like 7 or you're playing to 9 or whatever we're playing to, and it's like tie score and like it gets amped up. And, you know, you don't want to be the guy to screw it up.
Yeah.
How did you get on initially if you didn't have that respect?
Well, you know, what ended up happening was that there was like 3 or 4 guys from my high school team that were there. They'd throw me on their team. So they would pick me up and let me play. I think once I got out there and started playing, and guys saw me play, there was kind of like, you know, I'm just going to take the ball from this guy. I'm just going to punk this guy. You know what I mean? And then there was a little bit more where you start to earn, you know, just some respect by being out there and playing, and just your respect for your game. And then kind of like, you know, this guy's okay. This guy can play a little bit. And then it became a little bit more of an acceptance where, you know, I always felt like the greatest compliment was when guys, like after doing it for a while, like guys that I had no relationship, didn't know, when all of a sudden there's like some guys got winners. You want to play?
For sure.
You know, I mean, and but that didn't happen in the beginning. You know, that had to be earned over time. So it was good. Then I went down, like the thing at Centennial Park was really good because a lot of times there was a lot of college guys, there was a lot of older guys that we played against. There was a lot of guys that came back to my high school that would play. So I got exposed to a lot of those situations there. And you know, at that time when I was doing all that stuff, like most of my buddies as I got older, those guys weren't playing like that. We'd play, but they weren't playing like that.
Within that Billy Donovan interview, and you know, within part 1, you're introduced to, you know, a few of his high school teammates. One of them is Frank Williams, from nearby Hempstead, and through the reporting process, I actually got a hold of Frank Williams. He lives in the Oakland area now. Good guy, and I had a phone interview with Frank that took it was about maybe a 6 or 7 minute clip that we'll play within this podcast. I just think it's cool to, you know, hear somebody else talk about Billy in that time period and just some of the other things. So apologize for maybe not the greatest audio. It is a phone interview recorded, but you know, here's Frank Williams for about 5 or 6 minutes.
What do you remember about him as a player? I mean, I know he was very undersized, obviously, but just kind of scrappy.
He just had a lot of swag, you know, for a guy who, you know, came from a different type of environment. You know, he came from a pretty conservative environment, but when he got on the basketball court, you could tell who his influences were. You know, George Gervin, Walt Clyde Frazier, those type of players. He played the game with a lot of swagger.
He was battling such good point guards in that era, right? I mean, Pearl Washington, Mark Jackson, and he was he's holding his own against those guys, right?
He's more than holding his own. Kenny Smith was also a part of that group. You know, we were one of the best teams in New York. So, you know, Billy was a top 5 point guard coming out of high school, really. I mean, when you look at, after you go from Pearl Washington, Kenny Smith, Mark Jackson, Kenny Hutchinson, who went to Arkansas, I would have picked Billy. I think Billy was probably the 5th best point guard in New York to me, and he was a top point guard on Long Island.
Yeah. He's kind of, you know, I was just talking to him the other day, and he was saying he used to go to Hampstead, Centennial Park, some different areas with Bernard Woodside, and kind of play some pickup games. And he kind of credited that with really kind of maybe toughening him up a little bit, going into those environments, kind of having to earn respect. Do you remember going to those games, bringing him to those games, and him playing in those?
Yeah, I do. And you know, we wanted to be the best, and we kind of felt that, you know, he was the best point guard, but he needed to test his skills in a pretty tough environment. So, you know, it was mutually beneficial. We knew that we would prosper as a team, and for his own personal development, we knew that was a part of his mental growth that he needed to overcome. And playing in those environments, you could see his game evolving, and just kind of saw him preparing himself for the next level. So, yeah, it was a real good experience.
Yeah. I mean, do you remember him being like kind of nervous when you first brought him for the first few games, and then really get comfortable over time?
Maybe at the beginning, but I think once he realized that he was a good player, that hesitancy and that trepidation probably went away. At the same time, I think that Bernard Woodside and myself, we took great pride in making him feel comfortable. Billy was our guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, we wanted to make sure that he felt safe in those environments. And I think that, once he got over any discomfort that he might have, it was all about basketball. He was a great player. So, we all took pride in that.
Yeah. Do you remember any time he got hard fouled or something, and you like kind of came to his defense, like, hey, knock it off type stuff?
Yeah. I mean, that happened probably at the Salvation Army, which was in my neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
which is a pretty tough area of Hempstead. And I remember it, like I said something to the effect, yo, dude, that's my point guard. You don't do that. And, he didn't necessarily respond verbally, but I think those types of experiences built a bond between Billy and I. And, I feel good about that because he's obviously gone on and had great success. And even watching him from afar, I can see some of that maturation taking place. And I think it harpers back to some of those experiences that he had, in high school, probably.
Yeah. Were you a part of the Wheelchair Classic? I heard he played so well in this thing called the Wheelchair Classic. I don't know. Were you a part of that?
Yeah. Billy played, I played, and Bernard Woodside played also. So we had 3 guys off our team playing this pretty prestigious All-Star game. And it was interesting because, as I remember, Billy at that point was the only one who had not decided where he was going to go to college. I had signed with Fordham, and Bernard had signed with George Washington. So Billy went off. I mean, he had a chance to play against some of those top point guards, and he had a really, really good game. And it seems like within days, he told me that he was going to Providence. So,
yeah.
I mean, that was definitely a very important game for him.
Kevin said something about he had some lefty in and out dribble crossover that knocked Pro Washington down. Do you remember that play at all?
Yeah, I do. And it was interesting because our JV coach taught him that dribble.
Oh, okay.
A guy by the name of Gene Henderson was renowned for that particular move. He taught that move to Billy on JV. And Billy just took ownership of it. And Billy, he's not the fastest, but with that dribble, it made him a lot faster. And I don't think Pearl was ready for it. He probably looked at him and said, who's this little white boy? and Billy crossed him up and took him to the hoop, man.
Yeah. How much have you followed him, kind of through his progression from, to Florida, to national title, now to the Thunder?
Pretty closely. I think part of our bond is, we were never the type of guys who try to ride off each other's job. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I watched him from afar, and certainly rooted for him. So I followed his career, but we were all, pretty busy doing our own thing. So, I think Billy understands that we support him, but I'm not the type of guy to pick up the phone every day and say, listen, I saw you against, Kentucky or somebody. That's not how I get down.
So that is right there is a lot of what went into part 1 of the series, which you either have read or are going to read or will just do not want to read at all. You're not interested. Regardless, that's part 1 is his childhood, which takes it up to, through high school, which takes him to Providence, where, he had a very kind of storied career at Providence when Rick Pitino got there, and, he turns into Billy the Kid, and he's hitting a record amount of 3-pointers, and, he somehow turns himself into an NBA player, but it wasn't his first 2 years at Providence, it was not always easy.
No, he only averaged about 3 points his first 2 years. Didn't play a lot. He talked a lot about the system not really fitting his style of play very well. And that really was a struggle for him to fit in. They also had Otis Thorpe, I think his first year or two, and he had a coach that just really, Joe Mullaney,
good try.
Yeah, who really just wanted to slow it down. They had a 45-second shot clock. You talk about random facts.
Wow.
I know. For us being under 35, like, we didn't know.
45, man.
That's brutal. Like 35 is brutal these days. But they wanted to slow it down and pound it inside and really just grind the game and score in the 50s. But then when Rick Pitino came in, he wanted to get up and down and score in the 80s and 90s. And then they had the 3-ball, he said, his senior year. So that really shaped him and helped him become a better player. And it's just amazing how he transformed from his sophomore year to his junior year, where he wasn't playing very much, and then all of a sudden he becomes Billy the Kid, this sort of college sensation who leads his team to the Final Four as a senior. And it's just amazing how much he transferred his game. He transitioned and became a player from his freshman year to his senior year.
For sure. And it's interesting. He talks about it, just the kind of life's breaks and how, he thinks he's trying to transfer, and, he was thinking he might not even want to go to Providence originally. And then, Rick Pitino kind of shows up and has obviously had such a huge impact on his career, and just kind of how that happened. But let's get to another clip of Billy Donovan talking about this time, his playing days and beyond.
Going to Providence, those first 2 years, I mean, if you look at your stats.
Awful.
I just mean the jump. And obviously that had to do with Pitino, but how frustrating were the first 2 years?
Oh, it was hard. It was hard. One is, part of the reason I went there was because Joe Mullaney was the coach. My parents had a great deal of respect for him, and he was a great man. I think I walked into an environment where in high school we played in the 90s. We played very, very fast. We played up and down. Probably style of play for me. It wasn't the best style of play for me because we were really undermanned. Otis Thorpe was probably the best guy we had. And
Probably?
Probably.
Who's better than Otis Thorpe?
Well, he definitely was our best guy, but it wasn't like Otis was like at that time who Otis became with the Rockets.
I got you.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I say probably he was our best guy, but in relationship to the guys that were in the Big East at that time, I don't think Otis had the same cachet as some of those other guys that were in the Big East. And I always thought Otis was like the best front court player in the league, but he never. I think because our team was so bad, he was kind of a one-man show, and it's probably a little bit unfair to Otis because I think Otis, because he didn't have enough personnel around him, he just got doubled and triple teamed every game. You know what I mean? And I think my freshman year, we maybe won like 10, 11 games, and my senior year, sophomore year, won like 10 or 11 games. So I don't know if he ever really showed what he can do, and I think once he got with Houston and he had a lot more personnel, I mean, obviously the guy's an unbelievable power forward. But, we played really slow, and we tried to pound the ball into Otis, and that's all we did. And back then it was a 45-second shot clock, and we used every single second of it. And we played in the 50s. And athletically, I needed to be in a more of an open style. It would have been better for me. So the first 2 years were definitely challenging for me. But I would also say this, looking back on it, I think when you're a player and you're going through that, you always think you're a lot better than what you really are. And I probably didn't deserve to play and probably didn't need to play. And it was very, very, I never forget, a buddy of mine said this on the team, I forget who it was, he said, we're all, we're on a losing record, no one's playing, guys are complaining, I want to play. And a guy made a great point, he said, listen, our team's not very good. And my thing was, well, give us a chance, And he said to me, well, if the coaches thought that you could really help, I got to believe you'd be in the game. Because we're not very good. And that kind of like hit me between the eyes, like, wow, you know what? Okay, like I need to do some self-evaluating here. And, am I good enough to play at this level? Am I over my head? And there was a part of me inside of me that I felt like I could definitely do it, and I definitely could play there. In those first 2 years, although they were a struggle, I learned a lot, because I was playing against a different caliber of player. Even coming out of Parks and Schoolyards, on a given night, but like all of a sudden you're playing against Georgetown, and it's Reggie Miller, and it's David Wingate, and it's Ewing, and the list goes on. And you're playing against Villanova, and it's Gary McLean, and it's Ed Pinckney, and the list goes on. And you're playing against St. John's, and it's Chris Mullen, it's Walter Berry, and it's Mark Jackson. Like, you're playing against these high-level pros in a lot of ways, and I realized, geez, how far I had to go to even be a good, solid player. So that struggle, I think, also helped me too.
Yeah, and then, Rick Pitino getting the job obviously kind of jump-started your career. What was it? Was it his style, his coaching style, his on-court style? What was it about?
One is I think I got better. I was always willing to put time into the game, so I got better. And I also think when he came in, the style of play really, really helped me. And I think the amount of time he spent, because I was kind of like a gym rat, basketball junkie kind of guy, he was that kind of coach, so it was like this perfect marriage. So the amount of time he spent with me personally in the gym, day in and day out, was amazing. And I think he helped me take me from one level and bring me to a different level. And I think he believed in me. The style of play was different. It was a little bit more conducive to the way I played in high school. It was a lot of pressing. It was wide open. Then my senior year, the three-point line came in, which kind of really probably made me a better player than I was, because I played for a coach that coached in the NBA, and he was coaching against other college coaches that never dealt with the three-point line before. And we had a huge advantage because of him on the bench, because of his pro background and what he basically had been exposed to with UB Brown. So he understood the three-point line and how to deal with it and how to use it. And I think he managed it and maximized it better than anybody else at that time. And that really, I think, really allowed me to go to a totally different level because of the three-point line.
Got any Providence question?
You said you wanted to go to Seton Hall to play for PJ, or what was the reason that you wanted to go to Seton Hall?
It was close. They were the first team that really kind of came in that was a fairly big school. I actually, I never forget, like, I had not an argument with my dad, but like this discussion with my dad, because at the time it was like St. Anselm's, Bridgeport. It was all Division II schools. And I felt like I could play at a higher level. And as I mentioned earlier, you're growing up in New York and the Big East is going on. You're seeing Louis Orr and Bowie, the Louis Bowie show, and you're watching Reggie Carter, and you're seeing all these guys play. You just, I want to play in the Big East. And my dad's like, listen, it's free education right now. You need to, if you were better, there'd be other schools recruiting you. And I'm like, I think I could play at a higher level. And once Mark and Pearl and Kenny and Cutchin, those guys started to make decisions, what happened was a lot of these guys started to go down their recruiting boards, and I was, wasn't 1A or 1B or 1C, I was probably D, somewhere down there. And so as some of the recruiting started to shake itself out, Seton Hall was like the first quote-unquote high major team from a major conference that contacted me, and was one of the assistants. And PJ came in to see me, and I didn't play very well at all, and they were kind of unsure. And then John Cheney came in to recruit me, and I've never been off the Northeast. That's all I knew. I knew I've never really been south of Jersey my entire life. So, Cheney came in, and Nate Blackwell was playing there in Stansbury. They had a really good team, but they didn't have a scholarship for me. I was going to need to walk on the first year. I didn't know if it was a right fit because they had a lot of guards. So I kind of waited, and Coach came back from Seton Hall. I played well again, and PJ came back, and I played poor again, and it was just like this. They asked me to come up for an unofficial visit, so I went there for an unofficial visit and watched a game and spent some time with those guys after the game, but there was never like this formal offer, like, hey, listen, we're offering you a scholarship. And if he would have offered me a scholarship, I probably would have taken it on the spot. And it's just funny the way life works sometimes. I look back on my life and just sit there and say that these different things that I had absolutely zero control over just happened. I could have been there and PJ would have left and gone to the NBA after the Seton Hall thing. I could have been there. Who knows what happens? Who knows when I signed to go to Providence? Joe Malini's there my first 2 years. I almost transferred and left and went somewhere else. Here comes Rick Pitino. I was like, these things happen in your life. You realize, like, as much as we think we have control, it's very, very humbling to realize how little control you actually have.
Who else recruited you hard?
Well, at the end there, Holy Cross recruited me some, Temple, Brian Mahoney. When I went out my back door and I looked to my right, Brian Mahoney his house was right there. And he grew up in the same neighborhood I grew up in and knew my dad real well. He was an assistant coach for Corner Secker at the time. And, they didn't even recruit me. And Brian was great. He was great with me. It's like, listen, we're not, there's not going to be an opportunity there. Holy Cross, Temple, Providence, Seton Hall at the end came in and tried to, that was it. That's all I got. And I had a truckload of New England Division II schools. That was really about it.
The Utah Jazz, was there ever a time where you thought you were going to be on those Jazz teams, be a backup?
Yeah, it was funny. It was hysterical because this is an unbelievable story, and I always kid him about this. Jeff Van Gundy was graduate assistant coach at Providence when I played. So my last year there. So, and still to this day we're really, really close. And he spent an enormous amount of time with me as the rest of the staff. But so I get drafted. There's 5 rounds back then. I get drafted in the 3rd round, and Jeff goes and gets I don't know what it's called, Sports Hoop or whatever, all these tapes, the Utah Jazz, and Jeff's going to help me, learn Utah system and get ready for training camp and all this other stuff. And Jeff invested a lot of time in me. So I don't know if it was my rookie year or the next year that there may have been that expansion draft because the Heat came in, the Charlotte came in right around that time. I forget what year it was. So
it's in 90, I think.
Was it
90?
No, I think sure. Sounds all right.
Because it may have been before then.
89 or
90. Maybe it was then. So I forget. But anyway, so I'm Jeff's like, listen, man. I'm telling you, you got a chance to make this team. He said, I got a guy there that's in his 3rd year that, Stockton, I'm not so sure, he hasn't played very much. Okay, I don't even know who John Stockton is, right? Because he hasn't played much. So training camp starts. So I called Jeff after the first day of double sessions. I said, hey, Jeff, you remember that comment you made to me about you're not sure? I said, that's the best guard I've ever played against in my entire life. So it's always a funny story. But I knew it was going to be hard to make the team because they had 12 guaranteed contracts there, and the only way it was going to happen was if they were able to move somebody, and Ricky Green was the starting point guard, Stockton was the backup point guard, and then actually in the expansion draft, maybe in the 2nd year, in the expansion draft, I think maybe in the 2nd year, I think Charlotte took Ricky Green, and that's when Connor Stockton took over, and I was back in training camp there with them and Washington, so I wasn't like, this is going to happen. I
Pull-up jumper off the rim and and the Thunder win! All right, come on, let's sing the Thunder song. When you hear the sound of thunder, don't you get too scared. Just grab your Thunder buddy and say these magic words.